Prepare the children. Have your last meal. Say a prayer. Sign your will. Change your will. It's change your will. You remember what I promised you? I'm changing my will. What else? Go skiing. That's what you love to do. Go skiing. What else? Yeah. So you wouldn't want to know. Everything would be too depressing. You wouldn't want to know. You want to just like, whatever it happens, but live your life fully as if you don't know. Right? Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just not ascend the mountain?
Here's a creative thinker. God says to Moses, you're going to ascend the mountain and then you're going to die there. So he says, why wouldn't you just not ascend the mountain? I like that. No one's ever suggested that before. Can we rewrite the Torah part where it says, and Moses says, not me, I'm not going up there. I'm going back to Egypt. Good thought. It's an interesting thought. So why not just not ascend the mountain? I mean, really, what?
You have to obey God.
Well, number one, he sort of obeys God. Number two, chances are it's not about the mountain. It's about his time being up. That's where he's going to go. And he goes up to the mountain, in fact, so that, who knows where Moses is buried, by the way? Anyone know where Moses is buried? No one knows where Moses, that was like a trick question. What rabbi trick question? Who knows where Moses is buried? It's not like who's buried in Grant's tomb. It's a different kind of question. Like, who knows where Moses is buried? The answer is nobody knows where Moses is buried, which is kind of the way the story is written. He sort of walks off into the mist, off into the mountains, and he's gone. And we don't know where Moses is buried. Moses, who was the greatest leader, who was the teacher, the giver of Torah, why don't we know where Moses was buried? We know where some people are buried. We don't know where Moses is buried. Why not know where, somebody knew where Moses was going to die because they certainly wrote it down. Yeah, because, the worry is much of the Torah, much of this portion, in fact, that is the grand finale of the Torah with this poem. This is the poem today in the Torah, is all about people remembering who's who, what's what, that there's only one God. There aren't lots of little gods running around, that we're all part of the same universe. It's not about our religion or our race or our national origin or our language. It doesn't matter what it is. We're still part of the same world. We're still part of the same creation, and therefore we're part of the same godliness, that same divine creative power created all of us. And much of the Torah and much of this transformation of this group of slaves who were slaves for hundreds of years and in Egypt into a community, into a nation, into a people, into a civilization was to guard them against what we call in religious language idolatry, which is finding things to worship, all kinds of things, celebrities to worship or money to worship or whatever it is that you worship that you hold as your highest values. But instead to say, no, there's a higher value. It's something that we can't see. It's the source of real values in life. Thing that we ascribe to the Ten Commandments and loving your father and your mother and loving your neighbor as yourself and how to turn enemies into friends and pursuing justice and all those values that we, the Jewish civilization, have said come from God. Much of this story today is about don't go astray and begin to worship other things. And Moses would certainly be, it's easy to lionize people, great people, and start worshiping them and give them all of your loyalty. And forget that they're human beings like you and me. That all of us have our ups and downs. We're, in the Jewish life cycle, here we are, tomorrow night's Yom Kippur. This is our season. These are the days of awe. This is the season when we're supposed to remind ourselves of, in fact, our own failings and the ways that we haven't lived up to our own potential in the year that's passed, so that we can make at least one step toward being better this year. Another step toward being better this year. Another step toward being better. And take that on as a personal responsibility. If we start worshiping a person, it's as if we say, well, maybe that person will make us who we're supposed to be, when it's really always up to us. That's what this bar mitzvah is, when I stop talking in just a couple of minutes. That's what we gave this Torah to Scott. We gave this Torah to Scott to say, it's not this story or this commandment or that commandment that matters. It's the whole idea that what this Torah brought to the world thousands of years ago was the notion that there are rights and wrongs to aspire to that are beyond just human beings' opinion. That's the underlying values of the Torah that we put in the mouth of God, these commandments, these challenges. And this week's Torah portion in particular, this grand finale poem, acknowledges that people are people. It begins by saying, Moses, this is Moses' final speech to everybody, and he says, I know you're going to screw it all up. I just want you to know in advance, kids, he says to his children of Israel, that he's been schlepping for 40 years through the desert, I just want you to know, as soon as I'm gone, you're going to blow it. I know it. You're going to get into, as soon as you're successful, you're going to blow it. You're going to get into the land, you're going to get what you were promised, you're going to grow crops, you're going to go, cool, look what we did. And you're going to start messing up. And you're going to forget about what it was like to be poor and struggling and have enemies and succeed anyway. It's only when things are tough, says Moses, that everybody goes, God, help me. When things are going well, nobody goes, God, help me, or stop helping me, or whatever. It's only when things are tough, says Moses. And so you're about to have success. When you have success, don't forget to be grateful. Don't forget that it's the same God, it's the same power, the same creative energy and power in the universe that freed you from slavery, that is the urge to freedom, that allows you to overcome difficulties and challenges and enemies of all kinds in life, that is a part of your success as well. And you'll forget and you'll go off worshiping other things. But ultimately you'll come back, says this Scott's Torah portion. Ultimately you'll remember. And you don't need me around, says Moses, in essence, to remember. Just remember my words, like the parent sending his kid off to college, you know. I won't be there, but remember what I taught you. And when you mess it up and you forget and you stay out all night and you do whatever you do, the next day go, what was I thinking? As long as you keep going, what was I thinking, I'll be okay. When you just go, yeah, that was cool, then we're not so okay. But when you go, what was I thinking? Then you're like this, and you're like Moses. And that's what why we keep reading these stories over and over and over again. So returning to the Torah, after that rambling introduction. And I want to remind you, as you can read in the very beginning of this beautiful booklet, this is a Reconstructionist congregation. Well, you can't read it right there, but that one of the things that distinguishes, yes, our traditions, Reconstructionist Judaism from other streams of Jewish life is that we rejected, as I mentioned, the idea of exclusive chosenness of the Jewish people, and instead we teach that all people choose their own unique paths to answering the same ultimate questions of life. We do it in our way as a result of our unique history. Other people do it in theirs. There isn't one right religion and all the others wrong. If that were the case, then most people in the world would always be wrong. And instead we teach that there are many different paths to finding truth and godliness and God's presence, and ours is just one of them. So that's why we have two versions of the Torah blessings in here. The Reconstructionist blessing, which has taken the traditional form that says, Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, who has chosen us from among all people, and put another phrase in, Asher kervanu la'avodato, has drawn us close to sacred service. That will be the version that our bar mitzvah will be using. If you're called up for an aliyah, you can use the traditional one, you can use the Reconstructionist one, you can do it in English or any other way.
Yamod Rishon, Rabbi Reuben and I have the privilege of chanting the first aliyah on page 28.
Oh, lovely. Baruch Hu Adonai Hamvarach, Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, Asher Kervanu La'avodato, V'natan Lanu Et Torato, Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen. Ha'azinu Hashamayim Va'adabera V'tishma Haaretz imrefi Ya'arov kamatar liki tizakatal imrati